Hello, I hope you are having a lovely day today. I want to start off by addressing the last video that I posted, which if you didn't see it, it was the video about things that I no longer do as a Christian wife and homemaker to help us live a simpler and more healthy lifestyle. So after I posted that video, within probably 5 minutes of posting it, I immediately wondered, should I take this down? And I processed with Scott my feelings. I was feeling two different reasons for taking it down. Before I get to those, I do want to say the reason that I have a YouTube channel, the reason that Scott and I believe that Christians should be in media is because we are in a culture war, and if Christians aren't putting out a positive vision for a different way of living, then media will just be taken over by non-Christians and giving a different vision, especially for our young people. So the value that we find in doing media is giving a positive vision for living a life of obedience to the Lord, and that this is a blessed life despite all the troubles of the world, things that are out of our hands, things that we can't control. God is still good, He is faithful, and it's worth following Him no matter the cost. And so our whole thing is giving a positive vision. So that's always my hope. My hope is that watching videos gives you encouragement or ideas or a different perspective or sometimes just a language, because a lot of times you all comment that you already think these things, you have these feelings, but it's helpful to have words for them or to be able to put it into a language. And so that's always my hope, is that you leave these videos feeling encouraged. And so after posting that video, I had two feelings that made me wonder if you are going to leave the video feeling encouraged, and that was my hesitation with leaving it up and why I processed with Scott about if I should take it down. So those two things that I did not want anyone to feel was, one, condemnation or judgment for doing any of the things that I said that we don't do. I never want anyone to feel condemned watching these videos. Me sharing personal things that we do isn't a condemnation to people who don't do those things. So the feedback I got from that, several of you said they didn't feel that way, which I'm so grateful. I actually am so grateful for all of the kind comments on that video. It was a reason why I decided to leave it up, because I was like, okay, hopefully my heart is coming through because the feedback has been good. So that was one side. The other side of it was I didn't want to give information overload. Like all of a sudden I'm sharing all of these things. And if you're at the beginning stages of a health journey, it's like, oh my goodness, I have to throw out all my polyester clothes, throw out all my Teflon pans. That can be extremely overwhelming and cause stress and anxiety, and that's not good either. What I shared in that video was stuff that we've done over years. Even before I met Scott, those were things that I had already been doing. My other concern was that it would cause stress about this is all the things that I need to be doing. And I think that having stress about trying to do these things would probably be worse than doing all the things that you're already doing in full faith. If you have full faith for using your Teflon pans or using the microwave, praise God, use it. If you do it with joy and happiness, praise God, God bless you. It's like people who have smoked their entire life, and we now know that that's really bad for you, yet for some reason these people lived until their 90s and they're happy, joyful, full of life. And a lot of times I think it's because they're happy, joyful, full of life that probably gave them life into their 90s. I hope that makes sense. So all of those things that I shared, it has been long journey of us slowly getting to where we are, and there are so many things that we don't even yet do. Every day is a journey of moving towards a healthier lifestyle, but I think the most important thing is doing it stress-free and joyfully and having a cheerful countenance. There's actually a scripture on this that Proverbs 17:22 says, "A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up bones." So a joyful heart is good medicine. There's other translations that say a cheerful heart or a merry heart. So I kind of think that that's like a trump card for health, is having a joyful heart. That is good medicine. So I hope that that video was a blessing and helpful for you. I do want to also address some of the comments from that video. I need to make a correction. I misspoke in that video. So in it, one of you left me a really nice comment and said, if you bring all your food into the house and you take it out of plastic, what do you do about refrigerated items? And I had to go back and replay it because in my mind when I said that, I was talking about our bulk food pantry, and that's what I was pointing at, but I did say all of our food. So when I said when we bring all of our food into the house, my mind was on all of our shelf-stable food items I take out of bags and put into jars. So pasta noodles, beans, spices, herbs, rice, all of those type of shelf-stable things. That is what I was talking about moving into glass storage containers. With refrigerated items, I really don't stress too much about it because we try to be as healthy as we can in other areas of our life. That is something to us that just is what it is. We can't control everything. And there are still things that we do to alleviate that if possible. So with yogurt, that comes in plastic containers, which we still buy those, and I don't stress out about it. But whenever we get our raw milk, I usually take 1 gallon of raw milk and make yogurt out of it, and you can do that in your glass quart-sized mason jars, and then they never touch plastic. Or with ketchup, for instance, you can buy ketchup in bulk from Azure Standard. Now, it does come in a bag, in a box, and so it was in plastic, but in the past, what I've done is I've bought that big bag of ketchup, decanted it into mason jars, and then I canned it to make it shelf stable, and then put it in our pantry, and then that ketchup has actually lasted us a year and a half. We just used our last jar this past month, and I haven't bought any more because I'm hoping, Lord willing, we have tons of tomatoes this year and I'm able to make ketchup from our tomato harvest. That's usually the bottom of my list of things to do with tomatoes because you have to have so many tomatoes to make ketchup. We made ketchup in 2021 and Scott loved it. It was so delicious, but I haven't done it since because I've never had enough tomatoes to make all my pasta sauce and salsa, and then didn't have any left over for ketchup. So hopefully with the number of tomato plants I have out there that I can make ketchup. If not, I'll go ahead and buy that bulk bag from Azure again, and then I'll can it. One of you had said that you don't actually need to can it, that it already is shelf stable because of the vinegar, but it comes in cold because the truck is refrigerated, and I don't know why, it's just, I feel uncomfortable leaving it on the shelf. So I still like the idea of canning it just to make sure that it is shelf stable. That's just my own personal opinion. And to me, it doesn't take that much time to can it anyways. Again, if you start stressing out about everything, I think that's going to cause more health problems than relieving health problems, because you're going to be really stressed out trying to do it, because the industrial food system that we live in has eliminated the local food economy. So we can't just go down the street to the farmer's market and get what we need as we need it. Things are packaged in a bulk supply, factory made to be shelf stable in plastic for a long period of time. And that was the other question, was like, what does it matter moving it out of the plastic into a glass container if it's been sitting in plastic on the shelf for who knows how long? And I guess that is true. I mean, if you wanted to leave it in plastic because it was in plastic, that's fine. But for me, I just feel better about moving it in glass. And again, I just like the way glass containers look. The second point that I want to make from that video is on the tattoos, which I almost cut that part out when I was editing it because I really didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings or offend anyone, because I know tattoos are permanent. I do think that, again, most of culture, tattoos are really glorified and celebrated. And even when Scott and I were helping lead a youth group years ago, we were some of the only leaders without tattoos. And tattoos were often what was talked about. Not having tattoos was not talked about. So the reason I decided to leave it in the video was because I wanted to give another option for young girls who have never gotten tattoos before to say it's okay that you do not get tattoos. And I would actually recommend, if you are thinking about getting a tattoo, waiting until you're married and making that choice with your husband who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and that way you can pray about it and really know for sure if that is something that you want to do. That was my heart behind sharing it. I probably didn't say it in the most eloquent of ways. One of you had commented that you already have tattoos and you don't think that's going to turn off a husband, and there are many such testimonies of Christian girls that were single that have tattoos that found an amazing Christian husband that didn't mind the tattoos. Actually, some of you left comments about that testimony, so yeah. I hope that I wasn't discouraging two single girls with tattoos saying you won't find a husband. That was not my heart. I don't believe that. I just think a better way, if you don't have them, would be to wait until you get married to get them. I hope that I've clarified why I said that, because again, that's just something that I wish I would have known. When I was single, I had contemplated getting so many different tattoos because tattoos were, and probably still are, glorified in a lot of Christian circles, and so you kind of feel like I'm missing out if I don't get them, and I'm so grateful that I didn't get any of the ones that I thought about getting because I would have changed my mind about them. So I'm putting out a different perspective from someone who did not ever get tattoos, and I'm grateful that I didn't. So I think that's everything that I wanted to address with that video. The rest of this video, I'm going to answer some of your questions from the community Q&A post that I put up. There were so many questions on there. I will slowly be getting to them all over time. One of the most popular questions was about meal planning and food ideas, especially what are our go-to dinners. We eat very simply, mostly whole food ingredients. I actually don't do meal planning where I sit at the beginning of the week and write down all of my meal ideas. It just has never worked for me. It doesn't work with my personality. I never end up sticking with them. And there are some times that I've been like, okay, I want to do this meal planning thing, and I'll sit down with my recipe books, and I realize that I don't have a lot of the ingredients that these recipe books call for, so then I end up making a grocery list and then start adding things to my Azure cart, and then I never end up making those anyways because by the time I get those ingredients, I have completely scrapped the idea of that whole meal plan. Meal plans just don't work for my personality. I like having flexibility. I have go-to meals that are easy. I know how to make them, and I pretty much just cycle through those. And I also work with the ingredients that I already have in our house. So that's the blessing of getting your meat in bulk. Every year we get half of a cow, and that will last us nearly a year. And what's great about that is you get all types of different cuts of meat, and depending on what meat it is, that's what I base my whole meal around. So if it's a chuck roast, that's an easy thing to put in a crock pot with potatoes and carrots, leave it in there during the day, and then that's dinner for the night. Or if it is a cube steak, that's really nice to make with mashed potatoes and steamed broccoli or kale chips. So a lot of our meals is based off of whatever meat that sounds good to me that day or the night before. If I'm thinking about dinners for the next day, I'll look through the freezer and decide which one I want to thaw. That's usually how I plan our meals, is based off of what meat I have available to cook with. And the second thing is our meals are definitely based off of whatever the season is. So whatever we're growing in our garden, that is what I will focus on our meals around, or whatever we can get in bulk from our local farmers. This past fall, we were able to get 25 pounds of butternut from, our state has a bulk food, kind of like Azure, but it's from local farmers that put all their stuff together, and you can order it, and then there's a drop spot, and then you can go pick it up. So I ordered apples in bulk and organic butternut in bulk from them, and so during the fall, a lot of our meals were based around putting butternut in them. So there was a butternut lasagna that we were doing a lot with ground beef or sausage that we got from another local farm. And that local farm that's near us, I don't ever buy their meat when it's full price because it's so expensive. They do all pastured, regenerative farming stuff, but sometimes they have like surplus sales where they have too much sausage, and so they will sell the sausage for $4.99 or $5.99 per pound, which I think is a really good deal. So we will then buy a lot of it and stock up our freezer with it, and then I will use that, like I used the sausage in with the butternut to make a butternut lasagna. We love butternut soup. And so a lot of what we eat does depend on what is available to us in that season. So recently we've been doing for breakfast the Dutch pancakes and the banana and egg pancakes a lot because our strawberries are in season and we love the taste of fresh strawberries on those things. But as far as go-to meals go that seasonal items can work themselves into, we do tacos quite often. I buy those siete tortilla chips, or I make sourdough tortillas and we have like soft tacos that way, or quesadillas from that. So we do that quite often. I do a potato bake type of dish quite often where, because we only use organic potatoes, I don't even bother peeling them. I cut them up and put them in the oven with some sort of oil, lard, tallow, bacon grease, coconut oil, something, roast them with salt and whatever seasonings I want, and then on the stovetop we will do ground beef and then add whatever seasonings we want to that, put that on top of the potato bake with cheese, sour cream, you can do salsa on top, or arugula from the garden, green onions, again, whatever we have on hand, I'll put it on top, and then we can put ketchup on it. It is so good. It is one of our favorite easy meals. It's delicious, especially when it comes time to harvest our potatoes. We do that meal quite a bit. I also love to do meatloaf. It's a great way of stretching ground beef because you add your rolled oats to it and you can make it in bulk. So a lot of these meals, I will do a large amount of it so that way it lasts us 2 or 3 meals. Again, there's only 2 of us, so making food kind of goes a long way in our household. But I try to, when I cook, make meals last at least 2 meals for us. That way I'm not spending all this time in the kitchen to then do the same thing the next day. And then another go-to is homemade sourdough pizza. We do that quite a bit with the homemade pasta sauce that we use as a pizza sauce. Whatever meat that we have on hand as leftovers. So sometimes when we grill out, we do a whole bunch of steak, and then we will use the steak throughout the week in different ways, like on pizza or for breakfast with eggs. Usually whenever we cook in large quantities to make it last for a while. That is the blessing of having a bulk food pantry, is I don't necessarily need to meal plan because I'm not basing going to the grocery store off of a meal plan. I'm basing what I'm making off of the food that I already have on hand. It's nice to have rice on hand, dried beans on hand. So I do still have to think ahead, like with dried beans, you have to soak them. I like to sprout them before I cook them. And so there is still planning. I just do that mentally. I don't write down a list unless I think I'm going to forget it. Like at the beginning of the week, if I think I have a lot going on, then I'll just make a mental note of, if I want beans at the end of this week, then I need to start soaking and sprouting them now. Or if I want to make hummus at the end of the week for this event, then I need to start soaking and sprouting them now. That way it gives time for that to happen in order for me to then make it from scratch. Another question that I get asked quite a bit is, what YouTube and podcasts do you watch and listen to? I use YouTube for 2 reasons. Looking up information on how to do things, or as entertainment. So if I need to learn how to do anything, I will watch YouTube videos on it. So learning how to dye with natural things like black walnuts that are in our yard, or in the fall when goldenrod is blooming, how do you make natural dyes with those things? Or if I have a garden question, and like recently my onion tops were all fallen over after a windstorm. One of my favorite gardening channels that I always reference to is the MiGardener. He has all types of amazing videos that I find so helpful. He's usually the one that I look up for gardening tips right away, and I just recently did that the other day with the onions, and he addressed that. He said sometimes onions will blow over after a storm, and you need to address that because if the onion stems blow over, that kink in the onion stem, it signals to the bulb that it's time to stop growing. So you can alleviate that by trimming the stems, and that way they're not as top heavy. So I went and did that to all of our onions the other day in hopes that they will perk back up, and I tried to like loosely build the soil up around it to make the stem go back straight up. So I really appreciate his stuff, but that's usually how I use YouTube, is to look up information on how to do skills or learn something or getting inspiration. So we also love Bryce Langston's Living Big in a Tiny House. giving ideas of how people live very simplified lives, and there's so much creativity in those people's videos. I feel like they live very authentic lives and it resonates with us a lot. So Living Big in a Tiny House has been a long time favorite channel for us. It's actually, that is how we found out about Doug and Stacy back in 2018, was from watching Bryce Langston. He did an interview with them and we were like, wow, these people are really cool. So we started watching Doug and Stacy, and I actually don't watch their stuff anymore. For me, I try to avoid political outrage because I don't think it's good for health to have cortisol spikes. God bless them, but I don't want all these stressful narratives being played. I don't feel juiced or encouraged from outrage media or news, so I don't listen to any political commentary. If I want to know what's going on in the world, Scott will tell me. He's happy to let me know what's going on, but I don't follow any political, conservative talk show stuff. I don't think that it's helpful in any way, shape, or form. I did a full video on that if you want to watch and see more why before I get comments that tell me that it's important to be informed. You can watch that video for a further explanation on why I don't watch political news. I also appreciate Frederick Dunn's channel on beekeeping. His stuff is really fun. There's that one beekeeping lady that is so fun to watch. I forget her name, but she's in Texas. I think it's like Texas Beekeeping. I'll put it here, whatever her name is, or here, wherever this text is. She goes and gets bees that are like, they make a hive in someone's shed and she'll go and take them out, and I love watching those type of videos. Scott and I really enjoy watching those things. That was another question, was someone asked, will you ever get bees? And we actually had bees. It's quite a sad story. We moved with our bees. We originally got bees in 2021. We bought bees from a local beekeeper, and it was the first year we had bees. It was not great. It was not easy. We had split the hive, and both hives ended up dying for different reasons by the end of the year. And then we found out about Dr. Leo and his ways of beekeeping with a smile. We bought his book, and he recommends catching wild hives. So we bought Bee Commander, set our boxes up the next year up on a jungle gym where we lived, and we ended up catching a wild group of bees, and they were the best. They made so much honey. We moved with them with the honey and all, and it was a huge blessing. They were amazing bees, and they ended up dying over the winter that year because of, we think it was our own mistake of what we did. We've learned from that to just be very hands-off with bees, because the more you interfere with them, the more you mess with their natural way of doing things. We really appreciate Dr. Leo's natural ways of beekeeping. So since then, we've been putting out boxes and we just haven't caught any bees. We have been tempted to just go ahead and buy some, but yeah, we haven't done that yet. We would really just love to catch bees. So we have had bees. I think bees are amazing, but we just haven't been able to catch any. But Frederick Dunn's channel is a great resource for that, and also we did start out with the flow hive, and I wouldn't recommend getting a flow hive. It's way too expensive for what it is. You do not need a flow hive to get started with beekeeping. I would recommend going to your local bee chapter, and there will be a lot of people that are willing to help you, and it'll be far cheaper going that route than doing the flow hive route and trying to figure everything out on your own. So that's the beekeeping things. The rest of the YouTube channels I like. Oh, one of my absolute favorite YouTube channels is Tastemaster SA. I love baking videos. I think it's so much fun to watch people bake. And this is a South African TV show that they actually put on YouTube, where they get all these different South Africans together, and it's a baking competition. And I love it. I don't know if it's just because Scott's from South Africa, and so I've been there, and I just laugh because it's, American TV is so overproduced. I don't love American baking shows because it's just overproduced. Whereas the Tastemasters SA is like very raw. It's not perfect. The soundtrack behind them is not perfect. The one season, the girl, she dropped her cake on the floor and she served it anyways to the judges. And I was like, this would never fly in American baking. You would never be able to serve that. But it is just so funny and entertaining. It's one of my favorites. They actually just have a new season that just recently started. So I'll link all these channels below that I'm mentioning. And on that note, anytime someone posts the Great Kiwi baking shows or Great Canadian baking shows on YouTube and like shows every episode from that season, I'll usually watch those because I just love baking shows. And I've learned a lot from watching baking shows of different skills. So not only is it entertaining, but it's very helpful as well. Also, on the baking note, there is a lady with a very large YouTube channel. She's called the Icing Artist, and she does really entertaining baking stuff as well. She'll do getting cakes from a 1-star bakery versus a 5-star bakery, or getting 3 Christmas cakes from different bakeries and comparing which one is the best. And I love those type of videos. I think they're so much fun to watch. So I like all of the baking type of shows. If you like more peaceful, quiet, homemaking style YouTube channels, my friend Maranda Christine, she has a YouTube channel on thrifting and decorating her home with vintage things, and she lives in Kentucky, so she has an amazing Kentucky accent and is just so pleasant. Whenever I'm sorting wheat berries or hanging my dried herbs up, I will usually play her stuff because it's so peaceful, and I like seeing how she styles things and she decorates her house with every season. It's just really wholesome stuff, so I recommend her channel. And a listener from this channel is Claire. She has a channel called Boundary Road, and she lives in this beautiful stone old cottage, and she shares renovating her house and making spaces in her home beautiful. So if you like those more type of peaceful videos, I will put her channel below. Another one is Caitlin, who I get my laundry soap from. You're probably familiar with her. She was formerly known as Girl in Calico. Her stuff is now called Quiet in the Land. Her stuff is just beautiful. She creates the most beautiful, peaceful videos of her making things from scratch at home, or just her stuff is so inspirational. And then the other YouTube channel that I love is Kruger Sightings. So it is an animal YouTube channel, and for some reason I love watching animal stuff. I think God's creation is so amazing, and I just am thoroughly entertained by animal videos, especially ones like the Kruger safari ones of crazy things that happen on safaris, like when an elephant charges a safari vehicle, or when a lion is crossing the road in front of a safari vehicle. We went to Kruger in 2018. Scott's mom took us there. It was amazing. It is a huge safari and it's amazing, but you can get on these tour vehicles with these they're open. You're just sitting in the open and someone's driving you around. And Scott and I both agree we would never do that. We would never go on one of those open safari vehicles. We went in Scott's mom's SUV. It was so great. We could have our windows down, and if something went wrong, we can just roll our window straight back up. We actually had a wild experience with an elephant that came up behind our window. It was a male elephant. We were all just like frozen looking at him, and then Scott ended up pulling away. But you could see as he's pulling away, his trunk is like dragging on the floor. He is so massive. I actually will put the video here that I have. It's from my GoPro, so it doesn't look like he's as close as he was because the GoPros are fisheyed, but it was an incredible experience. Should we start driving? Start. Oh, mine too. So you can see all of those people in the open safari vehicle. I just would never do that. So I love animal videos. I actually, one of these days, I'm going to put all of my animal videos together and make a video on it, and that will have nothing to do with my normal stuff that I share, but I feel like God has blessed me with the desires of my heart of having really cool animal experiences, mostly from South Africa, in my lifetime. So one of these days I'll share that video, and it'll probably be something that your kids would thoroughly enjoy watching. So maybe I'll do that someday. If you are someone who likes those animal type of videos, Kruger Sightings is a fun channel to subscribe to. And then as far as podcasts go, I actually haven't been listening to many podcasts because I've been trying to do more of listening to the Bible app. My brother has really inspired me with listening to the audio Bible app. It's a great way of getting the Bible into me throughout the day. And then I've also been using the library app, the Libby app, which is free if you have a library card, and listening to books through that. And I'm currently listening to Pride and Prejudice. I've been trying to read it, but I find it's easier for me to listen to the book. But for podcast, an always easy go-to recommendation, because it's always good, is the Elizabeth Elliot podcast. I feel like whenever I listen to it, I'm always encouraged, and I feel like there are significant moments in my life where I can picture myself listening to her podcast, and I still remember what she said because it's impacted me so much. So that's probably my favorite podcast. I think this is a good stopping point in order to make this video not super long. I will carry on answering these questions in future videos, and yeah, I hope that this was a fun video for you to listen to, but I bless you and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.